Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammam sangham namasami. Greetings, my noble Dhamma friends. How are we this afternoon on this midweek? I hope you're all having a lovely week so far. It's quite hot in Australia for you people there. But yes, I hope everyone is doing well. Welcome to my channel, Mindful Samādhi, and I am your host, Dhamma Samādhi. Okay, so leading on or continuing on from previous weeks, I actually want to cover moral faculties and formulas that Buddha's laid out for us, because there's quite a lot of them. So I want to try and go through a couple each week, especially the ones which are associated with meditation and mindfulness practice. Okay, so today what I want to talk about is the 5 spiritual faculties. Okay, so in Pali we refer to this as Pañc'indriyāni. These faculties, you know, you can also refer to these as the 5 controlling faculties. But essentially, the 5 spiritual faculties are a group of mental qualities which are laid out in Theravada Buddhism. I'm not sure if they're laid out in Mahayana or Vajrayana, but they're laid out in Theravada Buddhism, okay? And these qualities, the practitioner must cultivate, strengthen, and also balance to progress towards awakening and the liberation of suffering. This is quite essential. The 5 spiritual faculties are a very important thing to try and adapt within one's own practice. So these 5 faculties actually come from a part of the 37 requisites of enlightenment, which is the Bodhipakkhya Dhamma. And they are, number 1, being Saddhā, which is faith. So we can refer to this as conviction or confidence. And then Viriya, number 2, is the energy faculty. All right, so this is effort, persistence, or we can even refer to it as like vigor or something. Okay, and then the third one is, as you're probably all aware now, if you've been watching my channel, Sati, which is mindfulness. We can also refer to this as present moment awareness. And then the last one, the second to last one, number 4, is Samādhi. Okay, Samādhi is obviously concentration or unification of mind. I like to actually refer to this one as unified awareness. And then the last one, Paññā, is wisdom. So wisdom can also be insight or understanding, or like a deep understanding. Okay, so these faculties, right, they're far from being just passive traits. But what they essentially do is they act as like leaders or controlling forces within one's own practice. So going back to the word Indriya, this literally means something like belonging to Indra, the king of the gods. So we could take this as implying something along the lines of mastery or dominance in reference to the faculties. So when these faculties become fully developed with one's own practice, they become unshakable powers, and they actually not only enhance our progress, but they actually help stabilize our practice as well. All right. So the amazing thing about these faculties, right, is that they actually coincide with one another. Now, they almost work in like a spiral way, so like an up and down spiral way. So how I could kind of explain this is the first faculty, Saddhā, or faith, what that does, it inspires the Viriya. So without the faith, you're not going to have any effort, are you, or energy. So the Saddhā inspires the Viriya factor, the second factor, the energy one, and then the Viriya actually sustains the mindfulness. So once you get the energy, it will support a sustained mindfulness, and then once we obviously achieve the mindfulness or the Sati, this then enables like a clear seeing kind of Samādhi or concentration. And that then will give rise, of course, to Paññā, the wisdom insight faculty. And then what happens, in turn, it deepens and then confirms the Saddhā again. So as you can see, that creates this upward spiral. So you see, these faculties which the Buddha has laid out for us essentially work in a structural way. So Saddhā, like faith or conviction, this is the initial trust or confidence in the triple gem. So the triple gem being the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. So eventually it shows us and guides us correctly on the path. And it shows us that the possibility of liberation is very possible in this very life, okay? Whereas Saddhā is more like a motivated trust based on seeing that the teachings make sense and they produce results. So this is not blind faith or some rootless belief or anything, but it's actually reasoned and rooted in a deep understanding based on observation, experience, and even investigation. Okay, so yeah. Now this is where it actually gets interesting, because the Buddha just didn't want us to have some blind faith towards his teaching, but rather he encouraged us all to test the teachings out for ourselves, which is very interesting because, you know, having a look at the scriptures and the suttas and everything the Buddha's laid out, we can see the theoretical side of it, but the Buddha didn't, you know, he kind of understood how the human mind works in a very, very deep level. So he knew us reading it, there would still have people that have skepticism and doubt, or skeptical doubt. So the Buddha said, not only just, if you want to just read these scriptures and these suttas, but apply some practical, you know, put some practical application into your practice, do the meditation, and have a look at what I have laid out for you guys. You can actually go and practice yourself and then see the results. So that for me was very interesting, because at one stage in my life I was a little bit skeptical and dubious about, you know, any faith, to be honest. Until I had, you know, years ago I started looking into scriptures and delving into spirituality, and once I finally came across Buddhism and started, you know, looking into the suttas and various other books and things about Buddhism, that's when I realized that there must be some truth to this teaching. Let me apply some practical, you know, application to this and see what happens. And then in doing so, I started seeing fruits of my labor, so to speak. So the practice that I was putting in, I could correlate that to the readings, to the theoretical side that I was looking at. So that's where it sort of comprised itself and came together. So it's very interesting. I'll actually read a thing here. What I've done is I've just, I've gone through each one of the 5 faculties, and I've actually got them all from the Samyutta Nikaya. So this is 48 of 10, and it's from the Indriya Vibhanga Sutta. The Indriya Vibhanga Sutta. Okay, so in this one, under faith, it says, in the Pali Canon, Saddhā is refined as the disciple's deep conviction in the Buddha's awakening. There is the case where a monk, a disciple of the noble ones, has a conviction, is convinced of the Tathagata's awakening. Indeed, the Blessed One is worthy and rightly self-awakened, consummate in clear knowing and conduct, well gone and expert with regard to the cosmos, unexcelled trainer of people to be tamed, or fit to be tamed, teacher of devas and human beings, awakened and blessed. This is called the faculty of conviction. So it's not just by reading the theory the Buddha's provided us in the suttas, but he knew full well that once we applied this practical element in meditation, you know, that the teachings were laid out for us, that it would quickly become apparent that we all would quickly come to discover that our confidence would unmistakably then grow through seeing true, wholesome results in our practice. So knowing that Saddhā arises from hearing the Dhamma and appreciating its logic, you know, observing the qualities of the triple gem, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. And then, even lastly, the personal experience and the benefits of having virtue by practicing meditation and ultimately then gaining insight. That is where the truth comes in. So it's all concurrent in the sense where we can read the theory, we can then apply the practice of it, and then we can start seeing results. And then this gives rise to a very strong faith. And then therefore, once we get the faith, this will bring rise to Viriya, which is the energy faculty. So all this understanding essentially acts as a spark or motivator for the entire path. It's very important. It's a vital thing. It's almost like the forerunner of wholesome actions, which was described in the Abhidharma. So without initial confidence, that awakening is possible and the path works. One will lack the motivation to make any decent effort if they don't show any results. So it's good that we can get the faith by reading the scriptures. This will give us the faith, and then the energy faculty then comes into play, because once we get the faith, then energy arises, and that drives us further to start doing the practice. And that is when we can start putting in an effort or energy by doing the practice. So in essence, Saddhā is the confident opening of the heart to the possibility of freedom, so to speak. It initially gets you on the path, and then it keeps you going through doubt, and then it finds its ultimate fulfillment. So when wisdom confirms that yes, the Buddha was right, and you can realize it too, it all kind of makes sense to us, okay? Now, the second one, once we have obviously the rise to this faith faculty, is Viriya. It's the energy faculty. So this is like the wholesome, enthusiastic perspective in abandoning the unwholesome states and then trying to cultivate wholesome ones. So it is also included as right effort as well in the Noble Eightfold Path. And it's often translated, Viriya is translated as either energy, effort, persistence, or diligence as well. I think you can even say vigor as well as a good word, but more like effort and energy I'd probably more commonly refer it to. So Viriya, what it does is it supplies the drive to overcome things like laziness, the hindrances like sloth and torpor, and other various distractions that may arise in our practice. So the Buddha sort of compares it to like tuning a musical instrument. So say, for example, like a violin or a guitar or something that has strings, or even a ukulele, I suppose. And just think about when you're sort of tightening those strings, you don't want it to be too tight and you don't want it to be too loose either. You just want that right amount of tuning, and that's how we want to implement that analogy into our practice as well. We don't want to be too tight about it and we don't want to be too loose. We just want that middle kind of momentum, okay? Because ultimately, like, too much or too much excess of this can actually cause restlessness or burnout. So too much Viriya is not good, and obviously too little, or like a deficiency in Viriya, this can lead to things like laziness and sloth and torpor as well. So we also have to be careful there, okay? Actually, I've got another. So this one's under energy, Viriya. So in the Indriya Vibhanga Sutta, like all of these are from the Indriya Vibhanga Sutta, so you can check them out. It's in the Samyutta Nikaya, okay? The Buddha defines the faculty of energy, Viriya Indriya, as follows. And what is the faculty of energy? Here, the noble disciple generates desire, makes effort, arouses energy, applies the mind, and strives ardently for the non-arising of unarisen wholesome qualities, for the abandonment of arisen unwholesome qualities, for the arising of unarisen wholesome qualities, and for the increase or development and fulfillment of arisen wholesome qualities. This is called the faculty of energy. Did that make sense to you guys? Do you want me to read it again? So the Buddha defines the faculty of energy, Viriya Indriya, as follows. What is the faculty of energy? Here the noble disciple generates desire, makes effort, arouses energy, applies the mind, strives ardently for the non-arising of unwholesome qualities. Strives ardently for the non-arising of unarisen wholesome qualities, for the abandoning of arisen unwholesome qualities, for the arising of unarisen wholesome qualities, and for the increase or development and fulfillment of arisen wholesome qualities. This is called the faculty of energy. So this directly corresponds to four right efforts as well, which is Samādhi, which are, like I just mentioned, Samādhi kind of refers to these four things. Now they are quite confusing. They're not easy to understand, and you kind of have to go slowly to sort of process it in the mind. So number one is the preventing unarisen unwholesome states. Okay, the abandoning, number two, the abandoning of arisen unwholesome states. Number three, the arousing unarisen wholesome states. And then lastly, maintaining and developing the already arisen wholesome states. Okay, so essentially Viriya, what it does is it acts as the driving force, which of course is activated by faith. So this is a very important thing to understand. Once we have faith, and then we have the Viriya, the energy faculty, the Viriya then just acts like this driving force towards the remaining three faculties, mindfulness, Samādhi, and then Paññā. Okay, so once conviction arises that the path works and liberation is possible, then Viriya provides the sustained path to act on it. Okay, so it counters laziness head on, essentially, which is one of the primary hindrances. And then it supplies the enthusiasm we need for instances like keeping the precepts, regular sitting meditation, or consistently doing our meditation practice, that including also walking meditation, investigating things like phenomena, diligently overcoming pain, doubt, and boredom. We can also closely refer to this as the four foundations of mindfulness: contemplation of body, contemplation of body, feeling, mind, and mind objects or mental objects. Okay, or the Dhammas. So we can also loosely look at that by investigating phenomena, overcoming pain, doubt, and boredom. In our practice, we can also utilize the four foundations of mindfulness to do this. So in essence, Viriya is the courageous, kind of like joyful persistence that transforms our initial inspiration from faith into real progress. Okay, so it's you could say, heroic energy that keeps the practitioner moving through hindrances. All right, so things like pain, and also, at times we have plateaus in our practice as well. And we need to understand, we need insight to arise in order to confirm the path's actual truth. Okay, so when I say this, I want to air a bit of caution and balance, because we need to balance this wisely, because too much Viriya can potentially cause a burnout. And on the other end of the spectrum, too little can obviously stall our practice. And it can also not just stall our practice, it can create things like sloth and torpor, skeptical doubt, these kind of things. So we have to be careful. We want that right equanimous amount of Viriya, okay? We don't want too much Viriya, and we also don't want too little Viriya. We just want the right amount of energy and effort in our practice. And obviously, I'm a firm believer in consistency as well. Okay, so it's necessary that we let things like Sati or mindfulness guide the tuning we're needing here in this practice. Okay, so with right Viriya, the path becomes not a struggle, but a natural, unstoppable flow of freedom, so to speak. All right. So hopefully that makes sense with the faith and the energy faculty. All right. So moving on, we have number 3, which is mindfulness or Sati. Now I've covered this in various videos and stuff. I talk about mindfulness quite often. It's very, very integral part of our practice and also everyday life. Mindfulness can be translated as awareness, recollection, and also clear presence as well. It's the third of these 5 spiritual faculties, and it's quite important. It operates the pivotal central position among Saddhā, faith, Sati, Samādhi, and Paññā. So it acts as like the moderator, I suppose you could say, or even you could refer to it as like the steering wheel within the 5 faculties. Okay, so it's very important because it's almost like, it moderates the other remaining 4 faculties, the top 2 and the bottom 2, and then you have mindfulness in the middle for a very valid reason. All right, so I'm going to read out the third one, which it says from the Indriya Vibhanga Sutta on mindfulness. So where the Buddha defines the faculty of mindfulness, Sati Indriya, as follows. And what is the faculty of mindfulness? There is a case where a monk, a disciple of the noble ones, is mindful, is endowed with excellent proficiency in mindfulness, remembering and able to call to mind even things that were done and said long ago. They meditate observing an aspect of the body, keen, aware, and mindful, rid of covetousness and displeasure for the world. They meditate observing an aspect of feeling, mind, principles, keen, aware, and mindful. And they also have a displeasure for the world. This is called the faculty of mindfulness. So this definition, it directly links to Sati in the practice of the 4 foundations of mindfulness, like I mentioned earlier. It's very important. So the 4 foundations, like I said, I've done a video on this, but it's contemplation of body, feelings, mind objects, or dhammas. Okay, so we have Kaya Upasana, Vedana Upasana, Chitta Upasana, and Dhamma Upasana. That's the Pali references to the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And it's categorized by remembering, recollection. The root sarati means to remember. All right, so holding in mind the wholesome Dhamma, instructions, and the true nature of phenomena, like clear, non-forgetful awareness, and not drifting, not losing our object. So, for example, if our primary object is anapanasati, contemplation of the breath, we want to have this very one-pointedness attention, and we don't want to be drifting off and losing our attention on our object. So that's what I mean when I reference the non-forgetful awareness. Okay, once we have our primary object, if it's the rising and falling of the abdomen, or perhaps if it's the anapanasati, the following of the breath or contemplation of the breath, we want to have a very refined and diligent awareness on that primary object. We don't want to drift away from that object, and we don't want the mind wandering, and we want to continue having that one-pointed focus. This is essential with our mindfulness practice. Okay, so keen observation. So we want to be diligent. We want clear comprehension, and we refer to this as Sati Sampajanya. So this is mindfulness with clear comprehension. It's free from greed, and it is also free from aversion. All right. So Sati, what it does is it ensures a steady balance all right, and almost like a harmony among the other faculties, preventing extremes, and also aiding and guiding the mind towards steady, clear progress, and leading us on this path to liberation, essentially. So it's this clear, non-judgmental, moment-to-moment awareness of the four foundations of mindfulness. So body, feelings, mind, and phenomena. All right, so that's where it becomes important to understand the four foundations of mindfulness. All right. I've done a video on that, like quite an in-depth video, so you can check that one out. I'll leave a link in the description. I think I left it in last week's video as well. But anyway, it prevents extremes, right? It protects the mind from lapsing into, agitation, frustration, dullness, and it ensures other qualities remain in harmony, in synchronization with each other. Okay, so strong sati is super essential in all stages of our practice. To sum mindfulness up in regards to the five faculties, sati is like a lucid, steady presence that keeps the mind from wandering into the past and trying to look into the future as well, and also becoming delusional. So that's what it's kind of doing. It's a clear knowing that allows the other faculties to function in harmony, turning ordinary, like our ordinary experiences into the direct path of insight. It's not passive bare attention, but it's active, like wise recollection grounded in the Dhamma. So develop sati diligently, or mindfulness diligently, because it's the guardian of the path. It's like the moderator of the progress that we're going to have. And essentially mindfulness is that important. It's like the foundation for true seeing and true understanding. So that is sati, or mindfulness. Hopefully I didn't move that. So the next one we're going to talk about is samadhi, or concentration, which obviously will lead on from the mindfulness. Once we have a strong sense of mindfulness, then samadhi will come into place. Okay. Now, samadhi we can refer to as concentration, which is more commonly referred to, or you could also refer to it as unification. But like I mentioned, I like to call this unified awareness. I think that's a better word for it, because like I said previously, when you're focusing your mindfulness on your primary object, you really want to have that unified awareness. You want to become one with that primary object. Once you do that, that will bring rise to this concentration faculty, or samadhi faculty. It's more commonly referred to as concentration, stillness, collectedness, or even absorption. And this one is the fourth of the fifth faculties, okay? So as we know, it's positioned after Saddhā, Viriya, and Sati, all right? So it sort of serves as stabilizing, like a unified force that allows the mind to settle deep and steadily, providing foundation, the foundation for penetrating insight, or Paññā, all right? So that's how that sort of plays out. Now, I'll read a short one I have here on that faculty, samadhi. So again, Indriya Vibhanga Sutta, the Buddha defines the faculty of concentration, Samadhi Indriya, as. And what is the faculty of concentration? There is a case where a monk, a disciple of the noble ones, making it his object to let go, attains concentration, attains singleness of mind. This is called the faculty of concentration. So as you can see, this points to the development of one-pointedness and the unification of mind, or this unified awareness, where the mind actually becomes steady, undistracted, and it actually gathers itself on the single primary object that we're looking at or referring to. So in many discourses, right, samadhi as a faculty is closely linked to the attainment of the four jhanas, or the absorption states of meditation immersion, where the mind withdraws from sensory distractions and experiences like a profound calm, like rapture, happiness, bliss, piti, and then, equanimity will also arise, and then it becomes fully unified together once all these things arise. So samadhi brings stability, stillness, and a very deep sense of unification, which allows a sustained investigation of reality. What it does is it counters distractions and any sort of scattering of our attention as well. It tries to really have this concentration or this one-pointedness or unified awareness, all right? So again, this is a bit similar to Viriya. We don't want to have too much, we don't want to have too little, because excess can lead to dullness or, like a stagnation in our practice, and then too little will actually prevent from any deep insight or paññā whatsoever. So in daily life, and especially in our meditation, samadhi develops a sustained attention on a primary object. So like I mentioned, for example, the breath, anapanasati. We could also, have our object on metta, loving kindness. It could be on bodily sensations, or it could be wholesome or unwholesome or negative, or neither wholesome or unwholesome feelings, the Vedana Upassana, or it could even just be the rising and falling of the abdomen, whatever our primary object is. So gradual withdrawal from sense pleasures and hindrances, essentially. So progression through access concentration, which we call upachara samadhi, to essentially obtaining full absorption, which is apana samadhi jhana. Okay, so support from tranquility practices, samatha, that essentially calm the mind, creating the unified awareness or stillness needed for vipassana, insight. All right, so samadhi is like the profound unification and the stillness of mind that transforms any scattered awareness that we may have into like a steady kind of like light, or you could sort of say like a luminous lamp or something, That's probably the best way to describe that. So it's like this calm strength that holds the mind together, allowing for paññā or wisdom to see things as they truly are, which is the 3 marks of existence, which I did a video on last week, which is anicca, dukkha, anatta, impermanent, unsatisfactory, and not self. So balancing this with right effort, it guards us with a mindfulness, and then it lets it be the supporter for the final breakthrough. So that's the 4th one. That's samadhi. Now the 5th one and the last one is paññā, so wisdom or insight. Okay, so paññā is often translated as insight, discernment, understanding, or even like a penetrative kind of knowledge. All right, it completes the sequence Saddhā, Viriya, Sati, Samādhi, and then paññā. But it sort of brings those 4 top faculties together, and then we can achieve this insight, this wisdom, okay, this deep understanding. As for the faculty that directly sees reality, it is the paññā, which is the liberating factor. It's the one that cuts through delusion, which we call avijja, and it eradicates the root causes of suffering and leads to full awakening. So arahantship, so to speak. All right. So I'll read the paññā faculty from the Indriya Vibhanga Sutta. So the Buddha defines the faculty of wisdom, Pañc'indriyāni, or Paññā-indriya, as follows. And what is the faculty of wisdom? There is the case where a noble disciple is wise. They have the wisdom of arising and passing away, which is noble, penetrative, and leads to the I can't get that word right, and leads to the complete ending of suffering. They truly understand this is suffering. This is the origin of suffering. This is the cessation of suffering, and this is a practice that leads to the cessation of suffering. This is called the faculty of wisdom, and obviously what I just referenced there is the Four Noble Truths. So this definition explicitly ties Paññā to the direct experience and the penetration of these Four Noble Truths. Dukkha, Samudaya, Nirodha, and Marga. Okay? It's not the mere intellectual knowledge, but it's like the vipassana, the inside wisdom, the vipassana Paññā. So this inside wisdom, right, that sees impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and non-self, or anicca, dukkha, anatta, in all of the phenomena, it leads to the disenchantment or the dispassion, the cessation, and therefore the release. So Paññā, it counters ignorance, avidya, which is the fundamental root of the cycle of rebirth. All right, so basically this is the penetrating understanding of the three characteristics, which I covered last week: impermanence, suffering, and non-self. Okay, and also I might add the Four Noble Truths as well. All right, so Paññā is like it's like the razor sharp seeing that can dispel the darkness. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Razor sharp seeing that dispels darkness. So it sort of transforms the path from effortful striving into effortless liberation, confirming that all conditioned things are impermanent, unsatisfactory, and non-self. When Paññā is fully developed, all of our doubts will end. The cravings will cease, and then the freedom will finally be realized. Okay, so once it's fully developed, if we have any skeptical doubt or any doubt whatsoever, it will also end, and all the cravings and clinging and attachment will end, and therefore the freedom will be there for us to realize. Okay, so Paññā is like the crowning faculty that directly uproots ignorance or avidya and leads to liberation. It transforms like initial faith into confirmed knowledge. So excess without faith can become dry intellectualism, or you could even say skepticism. So too little can lead to delusion. So we must be careful. All right. So the crucial principle here is Saddhā Paññā. Faith will become wisdom. Faith prevents wisdom from becoming like cynical or overly analytical. Wisdom prevents faith from becoming blind or superstitious. Viriya Samādhi, the energy balances the concentration. The energy prevents concentration from turning into being lethargic or dull. And concentration, therefore, would prevent the energy from becoming agitated or over-striving, going a bit too much above and beyond. And lastly, it's the Sati, the mindfulness, that oversees the whole process. Like a skilled driver keeping the vehicle centered in the middle of the road, protecting it from any extremities whatsoever. The Buddha used a famous, like earlier I was talking about the strumming of the musical string and, not too tight, not too loose. This analogy the Buddha actually referenced in the suttas. So he used a simile of a musician's sonar. Just as the strings must be neither too tight nor too loose in order to create beautiful music, it's the same with the faculties. In order to have the faculties in the right order, not too tight, not too loose, we just want to have this balance, this equanimous balance, and then this therefore will keep everything harmonized and together. So when they're balanced, when these faculties are like balanced correctly, they mature into very powerful full powers, and they propel the mind towards things like stream entry or higher stages, and obviously preferably arahantship as well. So in daily practice, observe which faculty feels weak within your practice, and then also observe the ones which are more dominant or prominent. So too much striving without calm, you want to add more Samādhi. If there's too much doubt, you want to strengthen it with faith or Saddhā. And you can do that by reflecting on the Dhamma and the suttas, all right? Reading the suttas. Because mindfulness will, it will reveal the imbalances naturally, okay? So we don't have to put a lot of effort in that sense, because our mindfulness will point us in the right direction. These 5 beautiful qualities, when they're nurtured properly together, they become like the very engine of awakening, turning our ordinary mind into the path which will lead us to Nibbana. Okay, so that's the 5 spiritual faculties. Hopefully that made a bit of sense to you guys. I wasn't just rambling on too much. So yeah, that's all I'm going to cover for today's video on the 5 spiritual faculties. If you do have any questions, feel free to send me an email, drop me a comment, or you can send me a DM in one of my social platforms, and I will adhere in getting back to you. So I wish you all a mindful practice, with hopefully now the utilization of the 5 spiritual faculties, and hopefully you can apply these 5 spiritual faculties, and I hope they arise. Not only arise, they strengthen, and they also mature in your practice, okay? So thank you everyone for listening, and until next time, may you all have a wonderful practice, wonderful mindful practice, okay? Te rawan sanai, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.